Hello and welcome to another Retro Crazy. This is the Amiga 1200 Part 2 and I'm going to look at cleaning up the actual disk drive itself and the keyboard, plus the case, and depending on time we'll see if we can get it all reassembled and tested. If not, that'll be Part 3. So let's spatter on. So I'm going to ignore the keyboard initially. I'm going to start directly with the last mechanical thing that we have, which is the drive. So the drive itself, we need to remove the remaining cables. Just gently wiggle out, little lock on the underside, so lift as you're doing so, and this cable should be straight in. Again, I don't want to pull by the cable and I want to do equally either side. Now I'm going to note that the cable comes up directly because there doesn't seem to be a key pin other than the standard marking. I don't know if you can see that. On this end you'll see the marking for pin 1. So if in doubt you'll see right in there it says 2, because 2 is at the bottom, 1's at the top I believe. So 1, 2, so it clearly shows you which direction the cable should go in. These are quite dusty. Hopefully it's nothing more than a case of giving it a quick rub down. These are not critical components, it's just aesthetics. If you really want to go to town, use some isopropyl alcohol and give it a good clean up. This is just aesthetics. With that done, to the side. Give this a quick clean and you can see we've got some surface rust. I'll lift off the surface rust, but I will not, I don't think, coat it with anything. I've got one mounting bracket left to remove, which uses a standard Phillips. And now with that removed, other than lots of dust and fluff, we are ready to actually open the drive. There are some screws here and here that mount through, but I'm going to start off by carefully removing just this top cover. Let's see how far in that takes us. Now I'm going to put some upward pressure with this finger and it flexes, and as I push in and lift it flexes this slightly, which hopefully will allow me just to pop that out, which it does, and hopefully if I can do the same here, that'll pop that side. And again, this is now, because it's under tension at the other side, it's not going to flex, so I'm just going to use this hole just to see if I can lift the clip point at this side, which is much tighter, but it went. And again here. There we go. And now you'll see with the bend, because it's under tension, it should just lift and out. So top casing can go to the side. We are interested in this. Now the drive heads are here and here. You can gently lift and you'll get a little bit of movement on the drive head but I can see, let me see if I can zoom in for you. It's exceptionally dirty and dusty in there, so that all needs cleaned out. You can also see the tracks that it runs on, and they are dry. So I'm going to guess the rest of the mechanism is going to be fairly dry as well. So we will look at cleaning all that up and recoating. Now, for a basic maintenance, you don't need to go too far. However, this silver bar here is what the head moves on, and I can see a lot of dust. So that's all got to come out. Let's strip it down a little bit further to allow us to get full access to what we need to clean. This sprung bar holds the top plate on. We shouldn't need to disconnect any of these. So to remove, it should just be hopefully a case of flexing to the side, the side plate, and if we are lucky, this should just pop up. There we go. And that's sprung, so there it is. Now the one thing I don't want are the heads crashing together. So you're going to hold the head up slightly, lift the front, and the whole top plate should hopefully lift up and come out of the way, like so. Now that that's disconnected, you can just pop that to the side. I'm going to use a Q-tip, and I'm just going to gently lower the head onto the Q-tip. And now the heads aren't touching and they're out of the way. And we can see the condition of this mechanism. We can see it's quite dirty, it's quite dusty, coming out lumps of dust from pretty much everywhere. So let's give it a clean. Usual, I'm going to use isopropyl alcohol, Q-tip, and microfiber cloth in this instance. Let's give it a clean. Well, you can see from the condition of these that just the main mechanism was quite disgusting. So now I'm going to focus on the bars, on the motor, but now I'm going to start going very, very carefully because I don't want to damage any of this mechanism. So the last job is to get into the heads and clean around the heads. Again, this is going to be a very, very gentle, careful job because I do not want to damage the heads. Now the upper head should just need a surface clean, but the lower head, if I start off with a nice clean Q-tip, I think is going to come out quite disgusting. Now it's time to clean up the head, and I'm going to use a fresh end and very, very carefully. Not a lot of pressure because you're not looking to damage the head. You are just looking to remove any contamination. And now I'll do the upper head as well. Again, very carefully. Interestingly, very little's come off the head, so that's fine. Now it's time to look at reassembly, but before we do so, we're going to need to re-grease the running sections and the main tracks. Now I realise I haven't recapped the drive. There is a small cap sitting down here. I don't want to touch the drive at this time. Hopefully the drive is still fine. But what I am going to do is I'm going to look at these buttons as well while it's out, because there is a way to possibly get this working better than it currently is. By just adding in some deoxit. But first I'm going to look at these parts, and to do that I'm going to use a white lithium grease. Just a nice simple white basic lithium grease, and to apply it I am not going to use a Q-tip. I'm going to use the tip of a screwdriver. So a little bit of lithium grease. Time to look at reassembly. Just before I do have these points here that the top head runs on. So again, I'm just going to give them a quick clean. I'm going to put some of the lithium grease, that's where the head runs, and now it's time for reassembly of the unit. So carefully lifting the head, removing the Q-tip. The legs will automatically drop down and follow gravity. Locate either one. In fact, let them run over so that they sit down. Just want my finger out of the way. And let the head carefully rest on. That'll now allow us to work on the rest of it. So we can come slightly further forward. Let those drop down, hopefully. One. Well, one's in, the other one doesn't want to drop. There we go. And they sit down and back, and now you can release fully on the head assembly. As far as the fronts are concerned, we need to lift them slightly so that they will drop down into the grooves, and when you're finished it should look like that, with these clearly located where they're supposed to be. Now your spring retention, easiest way is guide it over on one side till it's in, and now flex the body out until it locks under. It's not quite in the right place. You'll be able to see that when you're doing it yourself. Now you can just adjust until you get it to clip in. Now that's the top plate held firmly. There's a couple of areas, or one main area I want to look at. That's obviously the mechanism for dropping it. Lift the spring off. Remove the head, let it drop. Just a couple of small pieces of lithium there. So that it'll sit on it. And now I can return the spring back to where it should be. So now we have a reassembled drive. I'm going to get a little bit of deoxit. And I'm going to put it on the top of each of these little buttons. And then all I'm going to do is operate the buttons and let the deoxit drop down inside. Once the deoxit works its way in, that will clean up the contacts inside, guaranteeing that the detection of the right protect starts working properly. So the top plate has a little bit of rust, and this is a fiberglass brush. For small areas it's perfect. And I'm just using a small circular motion. You can see it's lifted the finish and the worst of the rust. So that's the worst now done. I'm never going to get it 100% perfect, and to be honest, I don't want it 100% perfect. This rust is part of the history of this machine. So I'll lift off all the loose, as you can see. But from there, I'm probably going to do nothing more than maybe put over some clear nail varnish. Just to stop it from oxidizing any further, but clearly showing that this is what's happened to it. I mean, you could, if you wanted, rub it all back and completely repaint it. But you know what? It's history. It shows the history of this. That's fine for me. It then just clips back on. One side and the other. And now we should have a drive that is clean and should read discs a little bit better. Next, I'm going to look at the keyboard. That's got to be stripped so that I can get to the base and get that cleaned. And depending on what we see, we might just take everything apart and clean it. Good tip for you before you start is simply to take a picture of what it looks like before you start. That way you know exactly where the keys are going to go once you've finished. These are very cheap to buy. This is a key puller, two different types, one end and another. This is the favoured end, and I got this off of eBay. Cheap to find and well worth the money. To use it, literally put it over the key, push, turn, and then you can just pull and there we go. That one's tight, but it releases the key along with the spring, and the key itself needs a good clean, so that's just going to go into a tub. So I've got all of these to do, so I'll see you in a bit. And there we have it. That's all the keycaps off. All the springs removed. I've left on the guides for the larger keys because I'm hoping I don't need to actually remove the main keyboard. It's still fairly well sealed. So I'm going to give this a hoover and then I'll give it a dust down, and then anything left will be lifted off with some isopropyl alcohol. And there we go, all done, all clean. I didn't have to take off millions and millions of screws. It's always a gamble because I'm hoping that the keyboard works flawlessly. However, the main thing is all of the dust and the finger juice has now been removed, and hopefully this will work a bit better. So next on the hit list, I'm going to be putting this away. And next we're going to look at cleaning the keyboard and the case, which, as you saw previously, was absolutely filthy. I do have a helper. Do you want to give a wave to camera? Yeah, remember the camera's up there. I keep telling her, but she keeps looking at the monitor, which is down here. There you go. It's my daughter. So fill this with some warm soapy water. So we'll be right back. So now that we're filled with water, hot soapy water, and my daughter's having her morning snack and making all the noise, we're going to continue, and I'm going to add some Vanish Oxy action. Well, I'm not. My assistant, who's giggling away, is going to assist. Hey, why you pop some of that in there? Just anywhere you want in there. Mixing that in, what that's going to do is the action is going to help bubble and lift off some of the dirt. So we're going to leave this for 5-10 minutes before we actually start cleaning. So we're going to do some cleaning using an exciting scrubbing brush and a toothbrush. Yay! Alright, so we'll see you after this very, very, very long process.
Brush away. I keep forgetting which is which.
Whoa! That escaped. Do you want to grab that one?
Daddy!
I don't know if you can see how disgusting that water is. There's bits floating in it. It's murky, it's brownish. Yeah, there's a lot and came off those. The keys themselves do need retrobrighted, but we can do that later. However, my assistant and I are glad that this is over, aren't we?
Yeah.
Did you think there were that many keys on a keyboard?
No.
No?
I thought there was way less.
Well, that's the hard bit over. Now we just need to wait for them to dry. Now that everything's dry, we're ready for reassemble. I have my helper with me again, don't I? Yeah, yeah, nobody can see you not. We've got our picture of how everything works. We've got a stack of springs and we've got a giant jigsaw puzzle of dry keys. So, first thing we're going to do is put all the springs on, and then as we do the springs, once they're done, we will pop a key on the top of each one, following the pattern. Again, I'll do this through fast forward so you don't have to watch all the boring stuff. Hey? Right, see you in a bit. Ta-da! Is that better? Is that what it's meant to look like now, do you think? Now, interestingly, you'll see there's a line of keys which are distinctly more yellow right across the middle, and I don't know why. But you can see shading, and some of the keys are distinctly lighter than the ones next to it. The sun, an exposure to the sun, can cause the keys to go funny yellowy colour, and that's why if you look down in gaps, see how the keys are sort of light at the bottom and bright at the top? And if you look from this side, no, not that side, look from this side, it's even worse. See the shading? That's where the sun has come in, and the shadow is where the bit isn't or hasn't changed colour, and the sun has bleached the keys. Now I might decide to do what's called retrowriting, but I can do that separately without actually having to take the keyboard out, because it has affected the darker keys as well. You can see nice and bright and quite dark brown by comparison the escape key. Then if I move it over so the camera can see it, the escape key is distinctly much lighter than, for example, the control key. But the key thing is, it's nice and clean, and it should be a fully working QWERTY keyboard. Yeah, you happy with that? Yeah? Excellent. Well, let's reassemble. Okay, do you want to do some magic? Yeah. In front of the camera, clap your hands together hard.
Wow!
And there we go! The magic of television. Yes. One fully reassembled Commodore A1200 with help from my lovely assistant. It's all done. I'm going to check the voltages on the power supply next, and then, well, get down to testing. However, that'll need to wait until the next episode because we've run out of time on this one. So, hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to subscribe, and see you on part 3 of the 1200 rebuild.